Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 87 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. Seas of people surged within chaotic Demon Sea. This place had clearly become focus of the entire world's attention. Countless hope-filled individuals brought along their prayers as they traveled to this place. Subsequently, they raised their heads and stared at the gigantic formation in the sky. At this moment, a lifelike ice sculpture was seated quietly in the middle of the formation. In fact, it seemed as though her surroundings were completely frozen. No one knew whether there were any signs of life remaining within the ice statue. At the same time, they did not dare to probe. This was because over the last year, despair had gripped the entire world, and this ice statue was the final pillar of support keeping peace in the world. Therefore, they simply could not imagine what a devastating sight it would be, if there were truly no signs of life within that ice statue. However, they were clearly trying to deceive themselves. After all, regardless of whether she succeeded or failed, the end result would appear eventually. This was because the threat to this world was gradually approaching them. Above the vast ocean surface stood a sea of humans that stretched beyond the limits of one's vision. Furthermore, as of now, this was the first time that their eyes were not locked on the lifelike ice statue. Instead, their eyes were filled with rich fear as they stared beyond the universe. The originally azure sky had become a lot darker. In fact, everyone even saw that a crack was slowly growing within the void. Meanwhile, the seal between the planes, which was blocking that crack, was becoming darker. The place where the seal between the planes was located was extremely far away. In fact, it was a place where even peak reincarnation stage experts could not reach. However, as of now, they were all able to clearly see the crack between the planes. Evidently, this was because the seal between the planes was weakening and the demonic aura was gradually seeping through. Finally, that destroyer would descend into their world. The dim sky was just like the source of despair. Immediately, a despairing expression climbed onto the faces of countless individuals. Could it be that there was no way they could avoid this calamity? Some onlookers turned to look at the middle of the formation. At that spot, the ice statue continued to remain unbudging. It has already been 1 year, and they had depleted the strength of countless experts. However, the miracle that they were hoping for had yet to materialize. Perhaps she has already failed? A depressing and despairing atmosphere enveloped the sky. Huh? What is that? Suddenly, some sharp and panicked cries sounded in the chaotic Demon Sea. Immediately, countless individuals followed the din and lifted their heads. Subsequently, a shocked expression surged onto their faces. This was because they saw that a stream of diabolical demonic aura had gushed in from the crack that was located beyond the universe. After which, that stream of demonic aura actually penetrated the dim seal. These demonic aura was extremely frightening. In fact, even the hot sun in the sky lost its luster the moment it appeared. Soon after, a crack appeared on the seal between the planes. When this crack appeared, numerous individuals felt like their heads had exploded. This was because they saw that there was an enormous eye behind that crack looking at them coldly. That enormous diabolical eye rotated slightly. Immediately, everyone felt a cold chill sweep past their bodies. In fact, due to that cold chill, the yuan power within their bodies seemingly froze for a moment. Countless individuals were trembling in fear, while their faces were completely pale. This was because other than the Yimo Emperor, who was once sealed by the symbol ancestor, who else could possess such terrifying strength? His gaze was so cold and merciless that it looked just like a devil surveying an army of ants. In a short period of time, his gaze swept across the entire world before it finally paused on the huge formation in the sky above the chaotic Demon Sea. Accurately speaking, his gaze was locked on the ice statue in the middle of the formation. When he saw that lifelike statue, dense ripples finally surged within that large evil eye. Clearly, it detected a familiar fluctuation from that ice statue. Rumble. The sound of demonic thunder seemingly sounded outside the universe. When the crowd realized that large evil eye had locked its sight on the ice statue, their scalps turned numb immediately. What is he trying to do? Someone exclaimed in shock. After which, dense demonic aura forcefully gushed out from the seal between the planes, before it transformed into a pale-looking hand. This hand was humongous. Meanwhile, it wasn't wrapped by a large amount of demonic aura. However, it gave off the sensation that it could annihilate the world. That pale hand forcefully stretched through the seal between the planes, which had yet to be completely destroyed, before it penetrated the void and slammed down towards the large formation that was located in the sky above the chaotic demon sea. It turns out that he wanted to kill the Ice Master, who was currently trying to break into the Ancestor stage. Clearly, he knew that the Ice Master was attempting to break into the Ancestor stage in a bid to oppose him. There was no way he would allow a similar situation to occur for the second time. He is about to attack the Ice Master. Countless individuals involuntarily cried out in panic while their eyes became completely red. The Ice Master's attempt to break into the Ancestor stage was the final pillar of hope for the entire world. Therefore, if she was interrupted at this moment, they would lose all hope. Stop him! Countless powerful practitioners roared. Though they felt fearful in their hearts, at a desperate moment like this, they went crazy instead. Promptly, countless rushing wind sounds appeared before many glowing figures rushed forward like a swarm of locusts. Following which, countless resplendent yuan power pillars streaked across the sky, before they smashed ruthlessly against the pale large hand penetrating through the void. Bang bang bang. Tens of thousands of maniacal attacks landed on the pale large hand. However, they could not even shake that large hand. Instead, the Yimo Emperor hand completely ignored these and like attacks and headed straight for the large formation. Bang! The sea region below was forcefully split apart, before a several 100,000 feet large swirl was forcefully formed. In fact, all the seawater within a several 100,000 feet radius was forcefully squished together. The large pale hand moved at an extremely rapid pace. It penetrated through various obstacles before it finally landed on the huge formation in front of countless despairing pairs of eyes. Crack! The formation was unable to offer any form of resistance as the outermost light barrier collapsed instantly. Immediately, all the peak experts, who had stepped into the reincarnation stage, coughed out blood. Following which, their bodies shot backwards in a miserable fashion, before all of them fell into the sea below. Stop him! The Life-Death Masters group suddenly opened their eyes. Following which, a stern cry sounded before their hand seals quickly changed. Then, they linked their hands before a frightening energy swept forward. Ancestor protection. A mighty light erupted from within their bodies before it transformed into an ancient glowing figure. Following which, that figure enveloped and protected them. When that large pale hand landed on that ancient light figure, it finally stopped. However, the ancient light figure merely lasted for a moment, before dense cracks began to appear. Traces of blood were flowing out from the nostrils of the ancient masters. Even though only one hand had penetrated the seal between the planes, it was already this terrifying. He was indeed a super existence, who was so powerful that their teacher had to ignite his reincarnation in order to deal with him. Bang! The blood flowing out from their nostrils grew thicker and thicker. When they realized that the light figure was about to collapse, a helpless expression flashed across their eyes. This was because they were completely exhausted. Crack! In the next instant, the light figure suddenly exploded. After which, the bodies of the Life-Death Masters group suddenly wilted before blood spurted out from every opening in their bodies. After which, they vomited blood before their bodies fell from the sky, like birds with broken wings. As their bodies fell, they saw that the pale large hand had eventually smashed heavily against the ice statue. Is it all over? This thought flashed across their minds, before helplessness and despair surged into their hearts. Is it all over? When they saw this sight, numerous experts felt their bodies turn cold, while their eyes lost all luster. Following which, a crisp sound appeared in their hearts. It was the sound created when the final glimmer of hope in their hearts was shattered. Countless individuals were in shock. Their bodies swayed, appearing as though they were about to collapse at any moment. Crack! All of a sudden, just as the world descended into complete silence, a clear and crisp sound appeared. It was the sound of ice being shattered. Some people, who were in shock, quickly turned their heads. Promptly, their stunned eyes shrunk intensely while their bodies trembled. This was because they saw that beneath that large pale hand, ice fragments were drifting downwards like an icy downpour. Moreover, at that spot, an alluring figure, who had been sealed in ice for 1 year, had showed up once again. Meanwhile, a long crystal-like hair was dancing with the wind. Buzz! At this moment, resplendent icy blue light swept across the entire place before it forcefully stopped the descending Yimo Emperor hand. Soon after, ice and snow flowed, before the Yimo Emperor hand was actually forced backwards. Ice Master! The Ice Master has awakened. Did she succeed? Countless individuals stared at this shocking scene. For the first time, the Yimo Emperor's attack was actually stopped and even pushed back. Therefore, an uproar erupted in the chaotic demon sea instantly. Following which, countless joyous and excited cheers echoed across the sea like thunder, stirring up huge waves on the surface of the ocean. While she was being stared at by countless pairs of eyes, that were so excited that they began to tremble, an alluring icy blue figure shot towards the sky. Following which, a terrifying cold aura began to spread across the world. Crack! The ocean below her was frozen instantaneously, before the ice began to spread at a frightening speed. In fact, everything within 100,000 feet radius was frozen immediately. However, when they saw how formidable her powers were, this caused countless individuals to rejoice. Swoosh! That alluring icy blue figure dashed forward, before she threw a palm forward and clashed head-on with the Yimo Emperor hand. Bang! The world seemingly collapsed the moment this clash occurred. Moreover, the Yimo Emperor hand was forced back once again, while layers after layers of ice spread across that large pale hand. Finally, that hand was completely sealed in ice. The Yimo Emperor hand trembled violently, before it quickly fled and withdrew back into the seal between the planes. After which, the cold aura followed and plugged the crack on the seal. It's actually the ancestor fluctuation. However, this is still lacking compared to the symbol ancestor. After thousands of years, you the strongest person in your plane. This emperor will personally descend in 1 month's time. That day shall be the doomsday of your plane. After the crack was sealed with ice, an indifferent voice sounded from behind the crack, before it reverberated through the world. When they heard this voice, which had originated from beyond the sky, countless individuals descended into silence. Meanwhile, intense fear surged within their hearts. However, their eyes brightened when they saw that alluring icy blue figure standing in the sky. As long as the Ice Master was protecting them, it should be possible for the world to stop the Yimo Emperor, right? With fervent hope in their eyes, countless individuals stared intently at that alluring figure. In fact, some people even knelt down involuntarily. At this moment, it was as if she had become their goddess. Standing in the sky, Ying Huan was staring at the broken seal between the planes. All of a sudden, a pale color suddenly flashed across her face. Following which, her body trembled before she vomited a mouthful of blood. Meanwhile, the color of her blood was actually icy blue. Ying Huan was staggering. After which, in front of countless bewildered pairs of eyes, she flew backwards. Meanwhile, blood mists continuously erupted across the surface of her delicate body. Located in the distant back mountain of Qingyang town, a figure covered with dust suddenly opened his eyes. In the next instant, silver light surged around him before he vanished into thin air. In the sky above the chaotic demon sea, Ying Huan's delicate figure was falling from the sky. At this moment, her eyes were gently shut and it seemed as though she had no intention of controlling her body. Following which, in the next instant, she felt herself falling into an embrace which was filled with a familiar scent. At this moment, she finally opened her pretty icy blue eyes. After which, she saw that man's face, a face which was imprinted deeply into her soul. "You are here." She looked at him and softly said. Meanwhile, her voice was exceptionally gentle and warm, and was not icy cold at all. Did you fail?" Lin Dong was hugging her. When he saw the icy blue blood on the corner of her lips, his heart shuddered involuntarily. At this moment, he realized that although Ying Huan's strength had reached a frightening level, she had not truly reached the ancestor stage. Otherwise, she would not have been wounded by the Yimo Emperor till such an extent. Currently, Ying Huan was just like a little cat as she curled and snuggled in Lin Dong's embrace. Meanwhile, her icy pretty face was leaning against his warm chest, while an enchanting smile appeared on her lips. Her delicate arms were gently wrapped around Lin Dong's neck. After which, she elegantly lifted her snow-white neck, before her gentle lips imprinted themselves on Lin Dong's lips. Finally, icy cold tears rolled down her pretty face. No? I succeeded. You succeeded? Lin Dong was slightly taken aback as he felt the soft and icy sensation on his lips. After which, he looked at Ying Huan's smiling yet tear-stricken face as his heart trembled for some time. What do you mean? Ying Huan got off Lin Dong's body. Her hand gently stroked his face as she muttered, "You have really endured through 3 reincarnation tribulations. Sorry, I was unable to remain beside you." She lightly took 2 steps back. After which, her pretty crystal-like eyes gazed at the countless anticipation-filled eyes from the sea of people below as her serene voice spread, "My current self has yet to truly reach the ancestor stage. At best, I can be considered to be at the half-ancestor stage. There is still an extremely huge gap to the true ancestor stage." The chaotic demon sea gradually quietened down. Many people became despondent upon hearing these words. Half-ancestor? What did she mean? With my current strength, I am still no match for the Yimo Emperor. When his true body descends upon this world a month later, I will no longer be able to stop him. The faces of countless individuals gradually paled, as the fire of hope in their eyes was extinguished bit by bit. Was their final hope about to shatter at this moment? The Ice Master did not advance into the ancestor stage like they had anticipated. Instead, she only reached the half-ancestor stage. Just a mere difference of a word, yet it was worlds apart. Really, is it the end of the world? Countless individuals muttered to themselves, while intense fear and despair crawled out from deep within their hearts. The ancient masters also wiped off the blood at the corner of their mouths. They gazed at the sky and sighed quietly in their hearts. It doesn't matter if you did not reach the ancestor stage. If we work together and combine our strength with the others, it may not necessarily be impossible to fight the Yimo Emperor. Lin Dong looked at the slightly trembling body of Ying Huan. The anticipation of countless individuals was just like a heavy mountain that weighed down on her soft shoulders. The pressure and responsibility of saving this world would make anyone become unable to breathe. Ying Huan looked at Lin Dong and smiled a little as she said, "In reality, I have already known that this will be the result. Even all this gathered energy cannot allow anyone to step into the ancestor stage. Moreover, this forceful raising of cultivation level has terrible repercussions. I'm afraid that my current self is no longer able to advance to the ancestor stage. How can it be so easy to truly reach the ancestor stage? However, this is within my expectations. Hence, I have still succeeded." Lin Dong's body violently shook as he blankly stared at Ying Huan. "It is precisely because I knew that this would be the result that I rejected your offer to replace me. Sorry, I had no intentions of dismissing your efforts. I am aware of all that you have done." Ying Huan covered her lips with her hand as her voice became hoarse. Tears rolled down from her eyes. Her eyes were filled with tender feelings as she looked at Lin Dong. There was no longer any traces of the iciness from before. The countless people of the world were blankly watched the crying girl that was covering her mouth. At this very moment, she did not appear to be the savior of the world, whom everyone had placed all of their hopes on. Instead, she was just a weak and pitiful ordinary girl. "Just what are you planning to do?" Lin Dong muttered as he looked at the trembling girl. Ying Huan smeared the tears on her face. She looked at Lin Dong as an extremely beautiful smile blossomed on her face. "I am thinking of letting you become the second symbol ancestor." Lin Dong was stunned. The countless experts below also looked at Ying Huan with incomparably shocked eyes. Just what did she mean? Give me some time. I will definitely reach that stage. Lin Dong stared intently at Ying Huan as unease rose within his heart. However, we do not have any more time. Ying Huan lifted her pretty face. The seal between the planes in space was rapidly dimming. The ice seal that she had placed above it was melting at a frightening pace. It was obvious that the Yimo Emperor was attacking the seal with all his power. Sorry. I have been lied to you all along. I got you to enter the ancestral citadel to create the divine palace and forced you to undergo 3 reincarnation tribulations. I am really someone you should hate. The smile on Ying Huanhuan's face had an air of ultimate melancholy. Her fingernails pierced deeply into her palm, and icy blue blood continuously dripped like beads of ice. The strength that my master spoke of does not refer to my ability to reach the ancestor stage. Instead, I possess the power to help one reach the ancestor stage. It is still possible to save this world. Of course, the precondition is that I must reach the half-ancestor stage. Lin Dong gritted his teeth as he stared at Ying Huanhuan. I do not want to be the second symbol ancestor. I am a very selfish person. Therefore, I do not view something like saving the world as part of my responsibility. I only wish to be together with those whom I care about. Even if everything will eventually be destroyed, I will at least not have any regrets. Ying Huanhuan looked at Lin Dong. It was as though she could read the thought swimming in his heart. She gently bit her lips and said in a hoarse voice, "But I only wish for you to live. I only wish for you to live." Lin Dong seemed to have been struck by lightning. These familiar words were said in the same manner by a red-eyed young lady many years ago in that hopeless situation back in the unique devil region. However, this simple request made Lin Dong feel a heart-shattering pain. Just what are you planning to do? Lin Dong shook as he once again repeated the same words. He stared at Ying Huanhuan and muttered, "Can't you listen to me for once? I really do not wish for things to be like this. However, is there really any other choice? In reality, everything was predestined since the beginning. It is impossible for me to change anything." Ying Huanhuan's pretty eyes turned fully red. Tears gathered in those eyes. "Sorry. I only wish for you to remain alive and well." Ying Huanhuan slowly stepped back and gently shook her head. The moment she did so, her long crystal-like hair gradually turned jet black. Those ice blue eyes similarly regained the lively pitch-black color from long ago. At this moment, the former lively young girl with a jet-black ponytail and a sweet laughter seemed to have appeared again. The expressions of the other ancient masters drastically changed when they saw Ying Huanhuan's transformation. Lin Dong had also sensed that something was amiss. He moved and directly rushed towards Ying Huanhuan. However, the space around Lin Dong was frozen just as he was about to charge forward. Ice turned into vines that entwined around Lin Dong. After which, ice gathered under his feet, forming an incomparably huge ice lotus. Even though Lin Dong had created the divine palace and experienced 3 reincarnation tribulations, he still had difficulty resisting such power. Although his cultivation speed was sufficient to be ranked amongst the top 3 since ancient times, the time he cultivated was far too short. This was also his greatest weakness. If he was given a little more time, he believed that he would definitely touch the ancestor stage. However, he did not have any more time. Ying Huanhuan. I will not let you off if you dare to do anything reckless. Lin Dong's eyes were entirely red as he roared. Ying Huanhuan gave Lin Dong a tender smile. Her smile was as sad and moving as a snow lotus fading away on an icy mountain. Soon after, her eyes slowly shut. A long time ago, an old man had carried a small baby girl from out of a 1,000-year ice mountain. The baby girl gradually grew up and turned into a little girl with a small ponytail. Binger, you possess great power. In the distant future, the world will perhaps need your protection when Master is no longer around. The old man faintly smiled as he looked at the pretty jade-like little girl and said in a warm voice, "Why will Master not be around?" The little girl's voice was young. Her large jet-black eyes were filled with innocence and confusion. The old man laughed and continued, "However, you will need to be fully willing to unleash this kind of power. Moreover, you will pay a huge price as a result. That price might well be your life. If you can find a person whom you are willing to give everything up for when that time comes, I hope that you will save the lives of this world." The little girl blinked her large eyes as if she half understood and said, "What if I do not find that person? Why should I sacrifice my life for others? I do not like it. If you fail to find that person, it would mean that this world is destined for a calamity. Master's agreement with you will also be void." "Oh." The little girl took a bite out of the popsicle in her hand as her jet black ponytail bounced about. Sacrificing her life for others? Although she was still young, the iciness in the depths of her heart allowed her to understand that it was impossible for something like that to happen. "Master, I ultimately still found the one who can make me willingly sacrifice everything for." Binga is also very happy. This distant memory surged out from a long-forgotten part of her mind as Ying Huan muttered to herself in her heart. The smile on her pretty face grew warmer as her hands lightly touched, forming an incomparably ancient seal. "I pray with my very soul. Using my body. Using my soul. Using my blood." An airy voice seemed to appear along with an ancient song. It leisurely resounded over all corners of this world. The four great Xian regions, chaotic demon sea, demon region, countless individuals lifted their heads. They could feel an indescribable feeling rise within their hearts as they looked towards a certain direction. Calling upon the spirit of heaven and earth, divine transformation, ancestral path. Ying Huan's delicate body trembled violently when the final ancient word sounded. Subsequently, the world started to shudder, and brilliantly colored light appeared in the sky. It was as though their endless spiritual light had emerged. In the end, the sky above the chaotic demon sea turned into a gorgeous light curtain that was hundreds of thousands of feet in size. The spiritual light ultimately poured into the huge ice lotus under Lin Dong's feet. Subsequently, the ice lotus became brilliant. However, Lin Dong did not have the time to observe the ice lotus transformation. He looked at Ying Huan with inconsolable grief. An icy blue flame had started to burn her body. At this very moment, he finally understood what Ying Huan intended to do. She was burning herself in order to activate her greatest power to assist him in reaching ancestor stage. However, the price would clearly be her life. Lin Dong finally understood why Ying Huan had rejected him in that cold and indifferent manner in the Western Xian region. That was not a formation meant for attempting to break into the ancestor stage. Instead, it was for the sake of activating this power. She had thought of this from the very beginning. "Stop! You stop right now!" Ying Huan. Countless veins of blood traces extended in Lin Dong's eyes as he struggled crazily and roared furiously. His roar was just like a wild beast as it resounded over the area. The Flame Masters group below had a drastic change in expression when they saw this. They were about to charge forward when they were held back by the Life-Death Master. The latter's eyes were red as she muttered, "This is her choice. Do not interfere. Why have things turned out like this?" The Flame Masters group had pale expression as they mumbled. Do we have any other solution? It is not so easy to reach the ancestor stage. Even little junior sister can only use this method in order to allow Lin Dong to advance to the ancestor stage. This is the only way we avoid this calamity. The Life-Death Master wiped her tears and answered. The Flame Masters group was speechless. They gazed at the sky. Even after everything they had experienced and been through, their eyes involuntarily reddened at this moment. The icy blue flame rose. Ying Huan looked at the practically maddened Lin Dong, while tears gathered and fell. "Sorry. I do not wish to protect this world, nor do I wish to become its savior. However, I wish for you to live. Lin Dong, thank you for letting me to fall in love with you before I awakened. Thank you for giving me so many beautiful memories. You made me to understand that one's heart will eventually bloom regardless of how icy it is. You once asked me if I am the Ice Master or Ying Huan. I can tell you now, you fool, there has never been an Ice Master. I was always Ying Huan. The icy blue flame rose in spirals. Finally, it wrapped around Ying Huan's entire body. Her somewhat hoarse voice also spread at this moment. Ah. Lin Dong let out a long howl of sorrow. It spread far into the distance. The heartbreaking pain and helplessness inside it instantly turned countless eyes red. Swoosh! An overwhelming radiance exploded from the enormous ice lotus at this moment. After which, the ice lotus petals slowly began to fold. Lin Dong's vision gradually turned blurry as the ice lotus began to fold, while his consciousness began to descend into darkness. When his sight was about to fade completely, a figure seemed to appear. Hands behind her back, a long jet-black ponytail bounced in a lively manner. Her pretty face was filled with a sly and lovely smile. It was just like when they met for the first time back then in Dao sect. Darkness followed by heart-tearing pain drowned Lin Dong's mind. It was as if his consciousness had fallen into an endless darkness. Howls akin to those of a suffering wild beast faintly echoed within this darkness. It was unclear how long these howls continued, before they finally started to gradually weaken as if the owner of the howls had exhausted all of his energy. After an unknown period of time, a magnificent radiance suddenly exploded within the darkness and wrapped around the consciousness floating inside it. This radiance was like countless images as it flickered past. Every image seemed to be a reincarnation. Lin Dong's mind was forcibly pulled into these reincarnation vortexes. Subsequently, he completely lost consciousness. Such a feeling was even more frightening than when he was taking on the 3 reincarnation tribulations. The wheel of reincarnation turned as a certain consciousness finally fully submerged within it, unable to free itself. His memories seemed to be stripped away as new memories took over. In the first reincarnation, he was still the Lin Dong from Qingyang town. He still worked hard in his cultivation to obtain justice for his father. However, he did not have the ancestral stone this time, and was merely an ordinary young man of the Lin family that was dedicated to the family. He put great effort into his cultivation for the sake of revenge on the most dazzling genius of the Lin clan. However, he did not have the patience to silently endure this time. Although he made the Lin family the strongest family in Qingyang town through his efforts, his hatred towards Lin Langtian was leaked, hence drawing killing intent. Blood and fire enveloped the Lin family. An inner clan member wearing the clothes of the Lin clan wore an indifferent expression as he thrust his long sword into Liu Yang's body. As fresh blood sprayed, she did her best to shout at the young man nearby who was watching this disaster in a dazed manner, "Donga, quickly escape." Thick fear surged in his heart. He watched as a tall and thin man with a handsome face slowly walked over. The long sword in this man's hands was still dripping with the blood of his family. "Are you the Lin Dong who wanted to take revenge on me?" The handsome man stood before Lin Dong. A faint mocking expression appeared on his face, while his gaze seemed as if he was looking down at an ant. "I will kill you." Lin Dong's eyes were blood red. Deeply rooted hatred surged in his heart as he howled and charged at Lin Langtian. However, all he saw was the cold and mocking smile on the latter's face. "Lowly member of the branch family, you cannot even tell the difference between up and down. Staying in this world will only tarnish the name of my Lin clan." A mocking voice sounded by Lin Dong's ear. Soon after, a sharp sword swept forth and pierced his neck without the slightest hesitation. Fresh blood sprayed as he powerlessly fell to the ground. In a pool of his own blood, he saw Lin Xiao, Lin Zhentian and the rest kneeling nearby. Subsequently, that same sharp sword cut through their necks. Heads fell one after another. Those widely opened eyes were filled with feelings of unresignment and despair. His vision started to descend into darkness. In the end, he faded together with his endless remorse. In one life, there was no hatred between him and Lin Langtian. His talent was outstanding and in the end, he allowed the Lin family to return to the Lin clan through his efforts. Moreover, he ultimately also became the most dazzling person in the Lin clan. Under his management, the Lin clan became the most powerful clan in the Great Yang Empire, while he too became the empire's #1 practitioner. However, there was no Ying Huan or Ling Qingshu in this life. At the very end, as his life reached its end, he lay down in a coffin under the countless sorrowful and respectful gazes of the Lin clan members. However, the instant darkness filled his sights, he faintly felt that he seemed to have lost the most important thing. Reincarnation. One life after another passed as if it would never end. Lin Dong's consciousness fell into this reincarnation and he could no longer find his true self. He obtained glory before, he was lowly before, he received respect before, he was mocked by others before. He had been subjected to the myriad shapes and forms of life. He experienced one life after another like a walking sack of meat. Only when each life reached its end, did he finally feel as if he was still unable to find something. Similarly, he had not found his true self. Subsequently, he met Ling Qingzhu in one of these lives. However, it was merely a glimpse, and that preposterous night of passion in the stone tomb did not occur. The latter was still the unreachable fairy that seemed to have descended from the heavens, while he were merely one of the countless people who could only look up to her. In that life, he was exceptionally ordinary. He achieved nothing and his life gloomily reached its end. The wheel of reincarnation continued to turn. After experiencing an unknown number of reincarnations, a certain consciousness grew more and more murky, as if it would continue to fall in this manner for an eternity. One life passed after another. In this life, he once again became a disciple of Tao sect. He once again saw that lively and pretty figure. Her jet-black ponytail seemed to bounce as if it could endlessly increase the vitality in one's heart. She was still the little princess of Tao sect, while he appeared rather ordinary. However, when their eyes met within the crowd, he seemed to faintly tremble for a moment as indescribable feelings filled his heart. He grew to like her. As a result, he started to work hard in his cultivation. He started to separate himself from the ordinary, and distinguish himself from amongst the Tao sect disciples. As his reputation amongst the Tao sect disciples grew greater and greater, those pretty eyes that quietly observed him grew increasingly bright. In the end, they became the two most enviable figures within Tao sect. They cultivated together and took on missions together. Amidst those life and death struggles, feelings bubbled forth. Bright flowers as far as the eye could see covered the mountains at the back of Tao sect. As the wind blew past, a fragrance immediately filled the area. Lin Dong was seated within this sea of flowers. He looked to his front, where the graceful and soft figure of a young lady was skillfully dancing. Flowers filled the sky and seemed to dance along with the twisting of her waist as they gathered around her. The young lady's clear as a silver bell-like laughter was the most beautiful sound in this world. His gaze was gentle as he watched the young lady. At this very moment, feelings so complicated that even he was unable to explain seemed to gush out from the depths of his heart. A heart-tearing pain lay within the deepest part of these feelings. His eyes unknowingly turned a little red. "Hey, what's wrong?" A clear voice rang out by his ear. The young lady's large and pretty eyes looked at him in a puzzled manner, while her jet-black ponytail flickered beautifully under the rays of the sun. As he gazed upon her face, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her hands. He was silent for a long time. In the end, he mumbled, "Marry me." When these words were spoken, he felt a special feeling that seemed to have passed through countless reincarnations and heavily struck his heart. She must be given happiness. This feeling seemed to be saying these words. The young lady was shocked by his sudden words. Soon after, her pretty face instantly turned scarlet red. Her large eyes contained a shy look, as she gently nodded her head. The entire Tao sect was immersed in celebration. As the most outstanding disciple of Tao sect, his marriage with the sect master's daughter was clearly what everyone was hoping for. In the bridal chamber filled with red candles, he gently lifted the brightly colored wedding veil, and gazed at the bashful and emotionally stirring pretty face under the red bridal curtains as his eyes involuntarily reddened once again. Subsequently, under the shy and puzzled gaze of the bride, he lowered his head and took those soft lips with his own. It was a night of passion. That soft groan of pain from the young lady embodied endless bliss. The two were inseparable after the wedding. Those feelings of not wanting to part caused many to be envious. To have found a person to cherish in this world was indeed a kind of happiness akin to a dream that one was unwilling to wake up from. However, Ying Huan could feel that Lin Dong would suddenly become very silent at times. He would sit on a cliff in a daze, as he watched the numerous disciples within the sect cultivate with eyes that were somewhat lost. However, every time his gaze turned to Ying Huan, the lost look in his eyes would transform into a look of warmth. It was just that the depths of this warmth seemed to hide something that he did not dare to speak of. "Are you hiding something from me?" she finally could not help but ask. However, in response to her question, Lin Dong merely smiled faintly and gently pulled her into his arms. His gentleness made her feel as if she was flying, and she would no longer be able to remember why she was asking. "I will make you happy forever." Lin Dong buried his face into her long and fragrant jet black hair as he secretly muttered in his heart. 1 year after another passed, and in the blink of an eye it was the 3rd year after their marriage. On certain a cliff in Dao sect, Ying Huanhuan's white and slender legs gently swung to and fro at the edge of the cliff. She slightly tilted her head, and looked at the young man who was gazing at Dao sect. The latter's figure was giving off an increasingly stable feeling. She pursed her lips and smiled as she looked at him, emanating the stirring aura of a lovely young married woman. "Father says that given your cultivation progress, you will likely have the qualifications to succeed him in 2 years. At that time, will I have to call you Great Sect Leader Lin?" She charmingly smiled and teased. "Then you will become Madam Lin." Lin Dong smiled as his hand reached out and flicked her forehead. His eyes were filled with doting tenderness. Ying Huanhuan grinned as she looked at him. She suddenly sighed and asked, "Is there something you want to tell me?" "Oh. Do you not feel it? You seem to have changed a little ever since our wedding." "It's not that change is not good, but you really treat me too well. It makes me feel as if you seem to be making up for something." Ying Huanhuan was a little downcast as she spoke. "I just want to let you know that you do not owe me anything. I love you, even more than I love myself." Ying Huanhuan gently bit her red lips as she softly said. The smile on Lin Dong's face gradually stiffened at this moment. He gently caressed Ying Huanhuan's face as he mumbled, "Why are you always so foolish?" "Then will you tell me?" Ying Huanhuan softly asked. Lin Dong was silent. He peered into the distance as extremely complicated feelings seemed surge in his pitch-black eyes. It was a long while later before he softly replied, "Are you willing to hear a story?" Ying Huanhuan nodded her little head. Lin Dong smiled a bitter smile, and started to tell his story. In that story, there was also a person called Lin Dong. Likewise, there was also a girl called Ying Huanhuan. Moreover, the girl was the reincarnation of the Ice Master, one of the 8 ancient masters, and there were also the terrifying Yimo. In this story, the two of them were mostly apart and did not spend much time together. However, their feelings were just as sincere. In addition, they did not become husband and wife in the end like they had here. His voice was a little gloomy and seemed to contain an endless sorrow. Ying Huanhuan looked at the Lin Dong. Her eyes had unwittingly become completely red. In particular, when she heard that Ying Huanhuan had ultimately ignited herself to send him into the ancestral road, crystal-like tears were already rolling down her face. "She doesn't seem to listen to you much, you must be very angry with her, right?" Ying Huanhuan's eyes were red as she asked. "Yes, if they could die together in the end, it would also be a kind of happiness. It is after all better than leaving the sorrow to the one who lives to bear alone, that is, a really unbearable pain." Lin Dong softly said. "But some things cannot be avoided in the end. You must bear with this sorrow and she must also bear the pain of deceiving her true love." "Yeah, I have no right to be angry at her." Lin Dong was suddenly stunned for a moment, before he smiled. "It is only a story after all." Ying Huanhuan did not reply. Those large eyes of hers only silently watched him, as tears continued to fall. "The reality is, that we are on that ancestral road of reincarnation, right? All of this is fake, right?" Lin Dong gazed at her. He pulled her tiny hand and placed it on his heart. "Can you not feel whether it is real or fake? Some things will never change even after 1,000 reincarnations. Moreover, if this truly is reincarnation, I would rather stay here forever. All I want now is to accompany you, is that okay?" Ying Huanhuan gently wiped at the tears on her face, smiling as she cried, "I have suddenly become very envious of that me in the story. What's to be done? I know that you want to make it up to me. However, that is not what I want, even though I know that your feelings for me are equally true." Ying Huanhuan softly chuckled, "Because I am also her." Without these thoughts in your heart, all of this would never have appeared. Moreover, she could ignite reincarnation for you. Do you believe that I will allow you to stay in reincarnation like this? Lin Dong looked at her. He had nothing to say. Even in reincarnation, her character had not changed at all. Can I play a song for you? What she could not do in the end, I will do for her now. Ying Huan released herself from Lin Dong's hands. With a wave of her hand, an emerald green Duqin appeared. She gently smiled at Lin Dong as the tears on her face glittered. Slim hands slowly descended. Slender fingers swam across the zither, as a sad sound melodiously fluttered. Her bouncing jet-black ponytail was just like the first time they had met many years before. Like that once clear as a silver bell-like laughter. Like that tender smile at that final moment when she ignited reincarnation. Lin Dong's eyes had now become completely red, as an enormous sadness hammered at his eyes, causing his vision to blur. His body faintly trembled. Countless reincarnations exploded in the depths of his mind, as his murky consciousness started to completely awaken at this very moment. The lost look in those pitch-black eyes transformed into deepness. In the end, his gaze landed on the girl before him as tears flowed. It was just like back then before reincarnation. The scene of that very face that held a tender smile, while those same tears flowed within the burning flames. Ah! He raised his head, as a heart-tearing howl of pain echoed into the distance and resounded across the land. The grief contained within it caused even the sky to darken. Ah! Ah! Why? Why do you never listen to me? Tears frantically flowed as he threw himself forward and tightly hugged Ying Huan. He could not longer suppress the feelings in his heart, and bawled like a helpless child. Ying Huan hugged his head as she pressed her cold wet chin on the top of his head. Tears dripped as she spoke through choked sobs. How can you stay here after I've paid such a huge price? This kind of compensation is something that the both of us do not wish to see. Lin Dong's eyes were blurry as he mumbled, let me accompany you in this life. If I allow it, you will once again fall into that endless reincarnation. Ying Huan's fingertips gently touched his heart. All of this is actually real, because it has happened in the deepest part of your heart. If you did not consider it, it would never have happened. I will also always stay here. All of this is enough. Thus. Ying Huan's large eyes looked at Lin Dong, before her soft lips kissed his mouth as tears rolled down her face. Lin Dong, please awaken. Lin Dong tightly hugged the person in his embrace as if he wanted to hug her into his body, and deeply kissed her back. On the cliff, a man and a woman were wrapped in each other's embrace. A breeze blew past, causing the bright flowers that covered the mountain to gently sway as if in accompaniment to the melodious Qingyang music. Bottomless light suddenly burst out from within Lin Dong's body. The world started blur as the person in his arms turned increasingly incorporeal. Although Lin Dong tightly held her in his arms, he was still unable to stop her from fading. Thank you. I was very happy in this life. She should also feel this. The pretty figure turned more and more incorporeal, however, the smile on her pretty face contained endless reluctance and happiness. In the end, she faded away. The world once again fell into darkness as if everything had returned to primal chaos. Lin Dong silently knelt within that darkness. A long time later, he finally slowly lifted his head, as a clear and bright light once again returned to his black eyes. He abruptly stood up as an unshakable determination surged. I have walked all of reincarnation solely to meet you. No matter what, no matter how great the cost, even if I have to ascend the heavens or descend to the depths of hell, I will bring you back. This episode ends here.